It was Friday evening. I was home. Earlier, my wife had called and said she'd be working late. The second call wasn't unexpected. She said what she needed to say. I just replied, "No. Not just no. Absolutely not. There's a diamond taxi waiting for you. Spot 127. You've got 30 minutes to be home. The drive takes 25. If you don't make it, don't bother coming back tonight." She didn't argue. Just a long, heavy sigh. Then silence. I hung up, turned off my phone, sat down in my chair, tried to read, didn't get far, couldn't focus. 29 minutes later, I got up, walked to the door, locked it. Just as I reached it, headlights pulled into the driveway. A taxi. She stepped out, clearly frustrated, saying something to the driver. I walked up, handed him some cash, and he drove off. She rushed inside, slammed the door. I didn't follow. Instead, I sat down outside, grabbed a beer, and waited. She never came out. After a while, I got into my truck, leaned the seat back, and just sat there in silence. Let me introduce myself. My name's George, I work as a plumber, and that night, something felt off. Back inside. Forgot to close the door. A few seconds later, I followed. She was sitting on the couch, silent. I went straight to the kitchen, grabbed something to eat, and sat down like nothing had happened. The tension in the room was heavy. Finally, she spoke. "How did you know where I was last night?" I looked at her, slight smile. "You told me." She froze. "No, I didn't." "What if I told you? You were the one who told me." She frowned. "What are you talking about?" I leaned back slightly, calm. "You talk in your sleep." Silence. "I know this wasn't the first time," I continued. "There were a few meetings." I watched her face change, slowly. At first, it was nothing serious, just being close, testing boundaries. I paused, but it didn't stay that way. She looked down. "Do you want me to keep going?" "No." Her voice was quiet now. "I don't even understand why I did it," she said. "I don't know what I was thinking, or why I let it go that far." I didn't interrupt. "I love you," she added. "I don't want to lose this." I took a breath. "I still care about you," I said, "but trust doesn't come back instantly. It takes time." She nodded slowly. "Can I at least go into the bedroom?" she asked. "I need to shower. Change." I looked at her for a moment. "Where did you sleep last night?" "The guest room," she said quietly. I nodded. "Then that's where you'll stay for now." I stood up. "Your things are in the truck. You can move them inside." Silence filled the room again. She looked at me, like she didn't understand a single word. "If my truck isn't cleared out before I leave for work on Monday," I said calmly, "I'll take care of it myself. And trust me, you won't like how I do it." She shook her head. "I'm not staying in the guest room. I'm your wife." I cut her off. "You're very close to not being my wife anymore." Silence. "For now, you stay in the guest room." My voice stayed steady, but firm. "Or I take everything and make sure everyone understands exactly why it's there." That's when she broke. Tears. No more arguing. After a while, she finally spoke again. "Can you unlock the truck so I can move my things?" I didn't answer right away, just walked outside, sat in the driver's seat, thinking, deciding what comes next. Eventually, I unlocked it. She noticed the locks, said nothing. Later, I stepped into the backyard. My dog was there, big, quiet, watching everything. He wasn't the kind of dog people felt comfortable around at first, but to me, he was calm, loyal. And right then, he was the only thing that made sense. I'd seen what my dog was capable of before, not violent, but controlled. He didn't need to hurt anyone to make a point. He just knew when to step in and when to stop. Later that morning, the back door opened. She stepped outside, looking for me. "George." She stopped mid-sentence. That low growl behind her was enough. She froze, didn't move, didn't speak. A second later, he relaxed, came back, lay down beside me, like nothing happened. She spoke again, quieter this time. "Can you unlock the truck so I can finish?" I nodded. As she started moving her things, I tipped the rest out onto the ground. Didn't say a word, just watched. A few minutes later, the sprinklers turned on. She rushed to grab everything, but it was too late. Water everywhere. Silence again. I just stood there, lightly scratching my dog behind the ear. Later that day, her phone rang. She stepped away to answer, but not far enough. I could still hear her, apologizing for leaving early, from somewhere she was never supposed to be. She said I somehow found out and told her to come home immediately. She told him it was a mistake, that whatever this was, it was over. I could hear his voice through the phone, getting louder, more desperate. She ended the call. He called again. She turned her phone off. And that's when I realized it's probably time to explain something. 6 years ago, during our honeymoon, we went to a small show. Nothing special, just something to pass the evening. One of the performers was a hypnotist. He invited a few volunteers on stage. She was one of them. I remember watching as he guided them through different routines. At the time, it all seemed like harmless entertainment. When it was over, he walked her back to her seat, and just before leaving, he leaned in and quietly said something to me, a phrase meant only for me. Then he smiled and walked away. The first thing she said when he brought her back to her seat was, "See, I told you it wouldn't work." The audience laughed, applauded. It all felt like harmless entertainment. But something about that night stayed with me. Over the years, I never really thought about it again. Until recently, something had been off. Subtle changes, patterns that didn't add up, so I started paying attention, watching more closely, asking questions in my own way, and eventually, things began to surface. Pieces of a story that didn't line up with what I'd been told, enough to confirm what I had already started to suspect. And then there was one more detail, something she didn't know I knew. The guy she'd been seeing worked for someone I trusted, which meant this wasn't over. The guy she'd been seeing wasn't exactly doing well at work. His manager had been looking for a reason to let him go for a long time. He was just getting by, doing the bare minimum. And lately, things weren't adding up. Too many business expenses, too many late nights. Eventually, people started asking questions. Nothing concrete at first, just inconsistencies. And then, patterns started to show. Places, times, repetition. It wasn't hard to connect the dots once you were paying attention, especially when you already had a reason to look closer. And once everything lined up, the picture became clear. What looked random wasn't random at all. It was a pattern. And patterns don't lie. The driver wasn't just some random guy. I'd seen him before, years ago, at our wedding. Back then, he was just a kid. Now, he looked very different, older, sharper. By Monday, things started catching up. He was called into the office, given a chance to explain himself. Just one request: prove that his recent expenses were actually work-related. He couldn't, and that was it. The situation fell apart quickly after that. He didn't take it well, and honestly, it wasn't just about the job. Some people confuse attention with something real. And when that illusion breaks, it hits harder than expected. For a while, I kept an eye on things. Nothing obvious, just paying attention. I usually finished work earlier than she did, so it wasn't difficult. Most evenings I'd take a drive, stop somewhere quiet, clear my head, One evening, everything changed. She was heading out, just like any other day. And then, something felt off. A car pulled up too fast. Voices, movement. By the time I realized what was happening, they were already gone. I didn't think, just got in my truck and followed. The drive felt longer than it actually was. Every turn, every second, mattered. They were heading toward the edge of town, a quieter area, the kind of place you don't end up in by accident. The place they pulled into wasn't somewhere you end up by accident. Old, run down, the kind of place people don't ask questions. I kept my distance, watching, waiting. When they stopped, everything started moving fast. Doors opened, a few more people stepped out, and within seconds, they disappeared inside. I didn't waste time. I moved, made the call, then pulled around to the far side of the building, engine off, waiting. Watching the entrance, knowing whatever happened next would decide everything. We stepped out of the truck and moved toward the door. I knocked. The door cracked open slightly. That was enough. I pushed through. Everything happened fast after that. Voices, movement, confusion. I didn't hesitate. Stay with her. That was all I said. He moved instantly, focused. No noise, just control. I stepped forward, positioning myself between them and the bed. No shouting, no panic, just a very clear message. This was over. In a matter of seconds, the entire situation shifted. The confidence they had before was gone, completely. Everything after that happened in seconds. They tried to react, but they were too slow. The room shifted from control to chaos. No one was prepared for resistance. Not like this. I moved forward, forcing distance between them and her, one by one. They backed off. The confidence they walked in with disappeared fast. He didn't fight for long. None of them did. By the time it was over, the room was silent again. She was still on the bed, unconscious, but safe. I stayed there for a moment, just making sure everything had stopped. And then, I waited. Her clothes were in disarray. I grabbed a blanket and covered her. That's when I heard it. Sirens in the distance, getting closer. I stepped back, moved to the corner of the room, away from everything. Down. He followed instantly, calm, still, like nothing had happened. When the police came in, the room froze again. I raised my hands immediately. No resistance, just clarity. One of the officers recognized us. A brief moment, almost disbelief. Then everything shifted back to procedure. The woman on the bed, I said steady, that's my wife. She was taken earlier today, I said, keeping my voice steady. I followed them here. The officers moved quickly after that. Radios, questions, everything falling into place. Outside, more lights appeared. The situation was already spreading. Then she started to move. Slowly at first, then suddenly, confused, disoriented, not understanding where she was. He reacted before anyone else, moving toward her, but stopping just short, careful, watching. She raised her hand instinctively, still overwhelmed. He didn't react, just stayed there, calm, until she recognized him. The tension shifted, slightly. The officers stepped closer, then stopped. That low growl said enough. "It's okay," I said quietly. "They're here to help." He relaxed, and just like that, everything started to settle. Once things calmed down, the paramedics moved in. She was taken out first, still disoriented, but conscious. After that, they handled the rest of the situation. The room cleared out quickly. What had felt like chaos just minutes before was now controlled. One by one, everything was documented, statements taken, procedures followed. I answered what I needed to answer. They reminded me how close things had come to going wrong, but in the end, No charges were filed. When it was finally over, we went home. The adrenaline had worn off. Everything felt quiet. I changed clothes, getting ready to head to the hospital. And then, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. A delivery. I almost forgot I ordered it. I looked down, then back inside. After everything that just happened, it felt almost unreal. Back home, things finally slowed down. He got what he'd been waiting for all day, his favorite pizza. Simple things felt different after a night like that. When I got to the hospital, she was awake, asking for me. The doctors said she'd be okay. Nothing serious, just soreness, some bruising, and time to recover. They kept her there for observation. The rest played out exactly how you'd expect. Statements were taken, evidence reviewed. And eventually, consequences followed. As for him, that chapter ended quickly. And just like that, everything changed. Not overnight, but enough to know things would never go back to the way they were. Before all of this, he wasn't even allowed inside the house. She was afraid of him. Now, things are different. He has his own space, his own bed, and a place where he belongs. The only time he's not around her is when he's with me. We even found him a companion, someone just as big, just as unique. And now, a new chapter is already beginning. It took time, but she healed, slowly. Things started to feel normal again. And eventually, she came back. Not to the same life as before, but to something stronger. Years passed. Life moved on. Not the same as before, but steady. Eventually, I took over the business. Built something of my own, something stable. We built a family too, bigger than I ever expected. 6 kids, a full house, loud, messy, alive. Time softened a lot of things. Not erased, but reshaped. He was with us for many years, loyal to the end. And when he was gone, it left a silence you can't really explain. But life keeps moving. New energy, new beginnings. Now the house is full again. Different faces, same loyalty. And somehow, after everything that happened, we ended up with something stronger than what we started with. The dogs have names now. Simple ones, easy to remember. They ride with us. Every truck has one, trained, calm, watching. And on the side of every truck, there's a mark, a reminder of where all of this started. The business grew, bigger than I expected, but some things stayed the same. We did too. Not perfect, but stronger. We're still together, still choosing each other. And in the end, that's what mattered most. Some things you don't forget, you just learn how to live with them.